So now you know how to remove an element from an array. But what about emptying an array? How can we remove all the elements in this array? Well, there are a few different solutions. Here's the first solution. We can simply reassign this to a new array. Now in this case, because we have declared this array using const, we cannot do this, so we have to change this to let. Now let's log numbers on the console. Save the changes. So now our array is empty. However, note that this old array is still in the memory. So if there are no other references to this object, eventually it will be removed by the garbage collector. So this means if we have, let's say, another variable called another, and this is also pointing to the same object, this original array will not be garbage collected. So on line 6, when we reassign the numbers variable, now numbers is pointing to a new object in memory, but another is still pointing to the old object. Let me show you. So here, instead of logging numbers, let's log another. Save the changes. So we can see another is still pointing to this array, to the original array. But if you look at the numbers, numbers is now pointing to a new object, to a new empty array. So this solution works if you do not have any other references to the original array. If you do have multiple references to the original array, then you need to use one of the other solutions. So I'm going to comment this out. Let's look at solution 2. We can simply set the length property to 0, and this will truncate the array. It will remove all elements. So here we're logging another. Let's also log the original array. Save the changes. You can see the original array is truncated, so it doesn't matter how many references you have to that array. So here's solution 2. The other solution is to use the splice method. So in the last lecture, you learned that with the splice method, you can go to a given position and remove one or more elements. So we can start from the first element and remove all elements in this array. How many elements do we have in this array? Well, that is numbers dot length. Okay, save the changes. Again, both arrays are emptied. And finally, the last solution is to use the pop method. So solution 4. So you learn that the pop method removes the last element in this array. Now we can put this in a loop and keep calling this method as long as we have an element in this array. So while numbers.length is greater than 0, we can keep popping elements. Save the changes. Again, both arrays are empty. Now this last solution is not something that I recommend you to do, because if you're dealing with a large array, let's say if you have 1 million objects in this array, there's going to be a performance cost. You're essentially calling this pop method 1 million times, okay? However, that's not the situation with most applications out there, unless you work for Google. But in terms of clean coding, you can see this approach is pretty noisy. Compare that to the first solution. This is very simple, elegant, but the only issue it has is it doesn't work if you have multiple references to this array. So my personal preference is to set the length of the array to 0, but the first solution is also perfectly valid if you have a single reference to your array. And finally, similar to the last solution, you can see solution 3 is also a little bit noisy. So overall, I would go for either solution 2 or solution 1.